Well, this is Ravings, and today we have gotten together to talk to you a little bit about some Armageddon.
Yeah, but first we've got to make a disclaimer because last week, well, not last week, just a couple of days ago, we released a show called Spiritual Douche, where we were talking about the Castro brothers and the Amanda Berry incident. Yeah, it turns out two of them didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, so we are releasing that information that two of the brothers have now been released. They are no longer pending charges, though the third brother, Ariel Castro, is still charged with many counts of kidnapping, rape, and the like.
Yeah, and we're still wishing him plenty of anal rapings in his future.
Good times to be had by all.
Alright, but anyway, we've decided on a different topic for today, since none of you are writing anything in or giving us any kind of feedback. We're just making this shit up as we go. We're going to talk about the end of the world.
It's going to happen.
Eventually.
Because it's only been prophesized millions of times so far.
No kidding. If you just type in the words end of the world and go to like the Wikipedia page, there's enough shit in there to give us a month-long show if we never stop talking.
Yeah, I checked that out, and there was at least 150 different Armageddons that have already happened.
Yeah.
Or scheduled to happen.
They were scheduled to happen, but we just missed out.
Yeah. But yeah, I know I've been told about it my whole life. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And the last big one that happened, December 21st.
Yep, 2012.
Yeah, I waited my whole life for that to happen.
No kidding.
And yeah, nothing happened. I sat there.
I was kind of disappointed on the 22nd. I'm like, man.
I was too. Yeah, I stayed up till midnight, 1 o'clock, then 2 o'clock because I was waiting for the different parts of the world to check.
11 a.m. or whatever it was. Yeah.
And yeah, nothing happened. I was really excited too.
I don't know. Every story that I found so far when we were looking this up throughout the week, it's all basically just controlling people through fear.
Yeah.
It took a bit of a different turn in the past century, but it was always just get everybody afraid, know that they've got to repent. They need to join up in whatever your cause is because you're the only one who can save them. You know when the end is coming.
I love that though. Because yeah, it's always someone's had some kind of visions and they're the only ones that have the ability to contact that side. But yeah, you're supposed to take their word for it because they had a vision of whoever. Just believe. Save me, Jeebus.
But yeah, the big thing that took a turn here, though, in the 20th century was not only were people prophesizing the end, as they always do, but then they started selling products that could help protect you.
Yeah.
There was actually I can't think of the name of the company right offhand, but some company had started selling a medicine to help you be protected from meteorites. Because in like 1916, they were sure the meteorites were going to hit and destroy us all.
Yeah, I do remember when that insurance company was selling alien abduction insurance, and it cost $1 a year, and it would pay out $1 a year for 1 million years if you could prove you were abducted by aliens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then all you got to do is live 1 million years to collect it all.
Yeah, well, if you were time traveling and such, I'm sure you just keep jetting back and forth. I would.
How screwed would they be if I just showed up like 50,000 years from now and I'm like, look, dude, I was born in the 70s. They took me, and here I am. I had your insurance policy. They'd probably be like, well, you weren't sending in your payments.
Exactly.
They abducted me. It wasn't my fault.
You're still supposed to forward it through someone. They would have known that if they were higher beings. Jeez. But yeah, I thought that was one of my favorite insurance scams of all time was alien abduction insurance.
I did find an Armageddon that I really liked, though. And I didn't get it.
What do you really like?
I really like the idea of everybody dying by this.
Oh, God.
No, that's a horrible way to put it. But at the very end of that list on Wikipedia, they had what they called the Big Rip Theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting from the Big Bang, which begins the universe, and everything's expanded out since then. But the Big Bang, or the Big Rip, is where we've just gone too far and the balloon's about to pop.
Yeah, it just keeps expanding until the universe rips itself apart.
Hey, we got a little while, though. It's not supposed to happen until like the year 22 billion.
Yeah, I was going to even ask you. I'm like, I'm not sure how many zeros this is for a year, but it's a lot.
I have to sit there and count them on the screen. All right, so this is 1,000 and a million, and we're at 1 billion. Yeah, 22 billion. That's a long time from now. Yeah,
I don't really need to worry about that one. But there are some things happening that I am a little worried about.
Oh, God. There are horrible. Oh, yeah, I was going to mention the fact that if you typed in end of the world, Google had 4.6 billion results for that.
Wow.
You could be reading those until we reach the year 22 million.
You could. That's a lot of sites.
That's a lot. Google, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm sorry. What were you going to say to you?
Well, just these, all these different prophecies about the end of the world, they all seem to center around things like there's going to be wars happening, or there's going to be all these diseases popping up, and there are all the time. There always has been. But there are a lot of things happening that are actually more concerning to me, like that the air is not fit to breathe, that you can't drink the water, you can't eat fish if you're pregnant, even though your baby needs the fish oils for the development of the brain, but you can't eat it because it'll kill your baby. So, yeah, those are the things I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, no kidding. We, as a species, are just kind of doing everything we can to make this planet completely uninhabitable.
Yeah.
And we're not even thinking about it. We've got our heads so far up our asses, we're not paying any attention to what's going on around us.
Well, it's more important to mow the grass all the time than find out what's going on in the world.
That's right. You got to have green grass. Don't let any of those weeds get in there.
Yeah.
The cleavers wouldn't like that.
No. But yeah, that's the end of the world conversations have always been kind of the same. That there's going to be these different things happen, these different big events, earthquakes, and there's going to be, I don't know, some frogs falling from the sky and different weird things happening. But the things I'm actually more concerned about is that the food is not fit to eat. You can't even tell what's in it.
Well, really, I mean, any kind of Armageddon type deal.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the end of all life. It's not the end of the planet unless we get hit by some meteor that breaks us in half, which could happen. I don't know.
Sure. Sure.
Maybe I'll prophesize that later and get you to buy into my cult.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could just be the end of our civilization. What if we push ourselves to a point where most life can't survive anymore?
Yeah.
And guess what? Banking on the hopes that some kid in the future might figure out that interstellar travel and find us a planet to live on? Not really any better odds than playing the lottery.
Well, they tried that already with the Hale-Bopp comet. That's why those people had to suddenly leave in a hurry. And I looked at...
They were catching their ship.
They were catching their ship home. And I read that, and they said that they had found whatever information from their leaders, because they had all these visions, that the world was going to end immediately, and they needed to hop on that comet and hitch it right out of town.
You've got to have a messed up brain. How can you even buy into that garbage? I mean,
I think it comes on slow. I think that it probably is not as strange to begin with.
Yeah, they start off and they're like, hey, I know you're feeling sad a little bit. Here, let me tell you some things to make you feel better. And they start off real cool, and they're on the level. Do
you guys want some punch and pie?
Yeah.
I like food.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
We're just going to go a little crazy here, and you're going to think it's okay. Because you used to be cool.
Yeah.
And I liked it when you were cool.
But then slowly things start to change, and you've got to start giving me some of your money, because the cult needs money.
I'm going to need you all to dress alike.
Exactly, yeah.
While you're at it, here, mutilate your genitals and prepare to drink the punch.
Yeah, and what they said was that this particular group of people that was called the Heaven's Gate cult, the comet was the Hale-Bopp, but they had to give up all their characteristics that made them, quote, human-like. So they
castrated themselves.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, they castrated themselves. They had to give up any idea of sexuality at all, any idea of individuality. They had to suddenly start dressing the same. They had to quit their jobs and give all their money and belongings and possessions to the church. And then you saw what happened after that.
I was wondering if somebody survived from there that we just never heard of. Because if you go back and you look at the old Heaven's Gate footage when the cops got in there, there was, everybody was covered perfectly in a sheet.
Yeah, the purple shroud.
Who the hell did that? Somebody had to go through and do that afterwards. Nobody ever mentioned it.
I never thought about that, but you're right, that is true.
The treasurer. He's like, it's definitely coming. Everybody drink this punch and lay down. Oh, all right, now I'm going to go to the bank after I've been covering you dumbasses up.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, that was the... one of the stranger ones, because that was one that came on when I was in school. I remember back when I was in school, that came in the news. I was inspired enough to make a painting about it.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen this painting. What's on it?
You have not. It's a group of people sitting in a circle with the leader who's doing the speaking cut into small pieces while still speaking. It's a very strange, abstract, kind of ghoulish painting.
Sounds like something I might have seen in an acid trip one time.
Maybe, yeah.
You never know.
Similar, yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much like that. But yeah, so that's what's going on at the end of the world.
Not really all that's going on. I mean, right now when you look around, we've got these people out there, they're calling themselves the preppers. Have you looked into them at all?
Yeah.
They're a little bit foil hat-ish, which, hey, those are my people because I'm a little crazy too. But not quite that crazy yet.
Well, they do have panic rooms you can buy. and install into your home.
That stuff is big time sales again.
And I can understand the idea of a panic room for a number of reasons, but I don't see why it should cost $20,000 to build one for yourself. But
well, all right, tell me this.
Yeah.
Under what circumstances could you see buying one of those?
Well, ideally you need to have one ahead of time, so it's not like you could run out at the last minute and buy one.
True.
But if I to use as a storm shelter, like for tornadoes, that we live in an area where that happens quite often, or other people may live in areas where there's wildfires or different things, and they may not have time to escape, but they could get into their panic room. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't have good enough ventilation. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see rich people who are afraid that the masses are going to come and behead them because they said let them eat cake or some shit.
Yeah.
But
basically, just as a storm shelter is really the only reason I could think of. Because if there were a big Chernobyl-like disaster, I don't see how that 4x6 room is going to make any difference at all. It's not going to do you any good.
What's always got me with the the people who are buying like the fallout shelters back during the big Red Scare in the early part of the 20th century, but so what? So you've got a shelter that you can go into, and you might not get radiation poisoning and die immediately.
But you're going to come outside eventually.
You're going to want to leave that room at some point. You're not going to want to live with your family of 6 with 1 year's canned goods until everything clears up a couple hundred years from now.
Yeah, what was that movie that had Brendan Fraser in it where he was locked in with his parents for like 30 years?
I have no idea, but I remember he came out as like a total messed up freak with no social skills.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Christopher Walken, baby.
Right, but that's kind of what would happen is if you somehow managed to have enough food to stay in there.
Blast from the past.
Blast from the past. That's what it was.
My useless brain pulls shit out of
there
it once in a while.
Yeah, and I appreciate all of that because you store a lot in there.
I do. It's like a defective hard drive. It's the Google nobody wants to use.
It's the Google nobody wants. Yeah, it's a strange little encyclopedia that you can access, but you have to know the right keywords.
Yeah, and I can never remember the passwords.
Exactly.
They just pop in and out every once in a while.
But yeah, that would be really crazy, though, if you were locked in a shelter, a storm shelter, a bomb shelter for 20 or 30 years with your family, and you came out and the whole world had continued going on, but you didn't know it had.
Well, really, I mean, look back at, like, the Branch Davidians, the people who burned up in Waco, Texas back in the early 90s.
David Koresh and such.
They had, like, shelters, basically. It was, like, a system of school buses that they'd buried underground that were linked together with, like, a hallway. And they had, like, all this underground storage. How many of these crazy cults do you think are out there right now? They've buried themselves somewhere because they think Armageddon is coming. Right. And they've just been living like that for 20, 30 years, maybe even 50 or 100.
There very well could be.
We could be fighting all kinds of crazy folks here after a while.
Wow, I didn't even think about that, but it's true. There could be entire civilizations underground right now that we're afraid the world had ended previously.
See, I don't need drugs. I've already got crazy thoughts in my head.
That is freaky, though. I bet there is people out there somewhere.
I have no doubt. There's got to be somebody. Hell, I believe there's a Sasquatch out there
I do, too.
How could you not? I mean, Jane Goodall even says, yes, absolutely. There is most likely some form of higher functioning primate that just stays hidden from society. They might be endangered, but yeah, they're probably out there. It's not a mystical, magical animal. Well, it's just an animal.
Then there's that family from Mexico that's all covered in fur, the Wolfmen. Maybe
circus people.
Yeah, maybe it's a genetic mutation of just having excess fur. One never knows.
It could be. You'd be a big motherfucker.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, but
excess fur, and we could form our own basketball team at any moment.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, what if there really is a group of people, a small family that evolved to living in the woods, way far away from people? Then they would have continued having generations of children, and they would have all kind of kept to the original ways that they were living, and wouldn't have come into contact with people, but very often, very infrequently. And they would have, when they saw people, they would have been scared and scurried away, just like Sasquatches do.
Well, I mean, when you look at the historical record, we did live alongside other hominids.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I see some Cro-Magnums you
look around, you see some you see people that look like those little wax statues in the museum. But I mean, it's very possible that this is a species that lived alongside of us at one point, and we have just been so horrible in killing them off. They've taught each other generation to generation, stay the hell away from those crazy animals.
Exactly.
Those apes are dangerous.
Right, yeah, we're going to stay over to ourselves and continue to live off of the land while they go and pollute everything.
But really, a lot of people are like, well, why is it? It's just because they became popular. That's why you see so many videos and all these sightings. I'm like, wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that we keep cutting down every wild place on the planet to build track malls and subdivisions.
Yeah, no, they don't need habitat. They don't need homes.
No.
But I did really like that video where Sasquatch was wearing a watch. That was my favorite one.
There are so many douchebags out there. I've mentioned before that I like conspiracy theories a lot, but I really like watching like ghost videos, and any paranormal investigation I think is relatively interesting if it's done as an actual scientific investigation.
Mm-hmm.
But when you try and look at videos of that stuff online, it's all trickery and douchebags.
Yeah, I watched one about a unicorn, and the YouTube assured me it had footage of a real life dead unicorn, real life dead one.
Real life dead one.
Yeah, and it was just footage of someone walking through a path in a forest, and you could just see a little rock here and there and some brush on the side, and then it just ended the video, and I never saw a damn unicorn, and I watched it repeatedly looking for it.
That's almost preferable to me over the ones that just end with somebody jumping out in a stupid mask and screaming.
Yeah.
That's got to be the most ridiculous garbage I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, did you see that video, though, that proved that they gave away that $1 million prize for winning the psychic competition?
I did. That was kind of neat. That was a cool computer program that he put together. Yeah,
you should watch that video. Google it. It's the only time that the $1 million prize has been awarded, proving that there's an existence of the psychic.
Is it James Randi? Was that the guy's name?
Yeah, James Randi. And make sure you watch the video all the way to the end, though. It's an important ending you have to check out, because that's where they actually prove what happened and what didn't happen.
Oh, no, I don't think I've seen
it. Oh, you didn't see the whole video.
I'm bad at this.
I'm telling you, watch it all the way in. It's about 30 minutes long. You need to check out all the way to the last 5 or 10 seconds at least.
You know, it cracks me up. There's so many people out there that are like, I don't have 30 minutes to watch something like that. I've got beer to drink and sports to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was in college, we had a professor that said it's your responsibility to gather a few hours worth of media a day as far as educational media, something from the New York Times or the Chicago Post, but something that has to be from bigger cities, and not just one of them. Find several of them and have hours worth every day. Otherwise, you will never be actually educated on what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I've heard there was I don't remember who did it, but there was some quote out there that said, you know, if you don't read the newspaper every day, you're uninformed.
Right.
But if you do read the newspaper every day, you're misinformed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why if you're going to educate yourself, you have to learn a lot from a lot of different sources.
Oh, you do. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many things out there that I'm interested in, I want to talk about. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast in the first place was whenever you hear podcasts and people are having interesting conversations, they're generally like out on the West Coast, somewhere nice and fun, somewhere that everybody dreams of going for vacation.
You can see the beach through the window of the studio.
Exactly. But the Midwest, there's nobody talking about anything that's remotely interesting here.
Not very often.
We need to start putting together a community. We need to start talking about things that interest us. Get other people inspired to talk about things that interest them. Find, that common ground that we all have. Everybody's got something that we're all interested in.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to have some new ideas, too, of things that it hasn't even occurred to you to be interested in, because you didn't even know it was out there.
Right. I mean, how many people out there are really watching anything as far as what's going on in the world of physics?
Yeah.
And what people of real sound scientific minds think makes up all of reality.
I like quantum physics.
I do, but there's also a lot of douchebaggery.
There is. I just watched a documentary on quantum physics the other day, and I laughed so hard because all of the people in the video that appeared were all wearing all black, and several of them had the little crystal necklaces on. And it's cool, but honestly, every time I see somebody wearing all black and it's some kind of philosophical or metaphysical documentary, I always roll my eyes, and I don't mean to.
Might as well just have douchebag printed on the screen.
I mean, truly.
Which one are you talking about?
But it's kind of like the same thing when you watch a video about pharmacological substances, and it's supposed to be an educational video, and they're wearing a big marijuana pot leaf on their shirt.
They got their dreadlocks
right, and you just roll your eyes and go, wow.
You're like, no, you're not educating anyone.
Yeah.
Shut up.
But yeah, I did. I watched a documentary on quantum physics the other day, and it's all the same kind of information that you...
Which documentary was it?
Oh, gosh. What was it called? What the bleep do we know? And I know that that's a Hollywood campy version of one, but I got it free from the library, and I love to support my local library. So I went... I
love to support them by getting free stuff.
Yeah, I do. I love to support them by getting free stuff and making my tax dollars count for something because I utilize services.
Yeah, the library's a great resource.
Yeah, but yeah, it's campy. The video is campy, but the people in it wearing the crystal necklaces and all black always make me laugh. And then you know that they watched this when they went home. You knew that they were going into tape that day.
Actually, there's a lot of bad stories going on around there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, there's something going on outside the door, and I don't even care what it is. A lot of those people, like the actual physicists in the show, did not know how the show was going to be presented at the end.
I see.
They were giving actual information, and it was being spliced together with people who were... Well, there's that one woman, the blonde chick. I think she was wearing red in that.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
She's not a physicist at all. She's a crazed cult leader, and she tells people she's channeling a spirit from the Pleiades region of outer space. I'm like, really? That's where you're getting your information? When do we drink the punch?
Well, yeah. But it's kind of like the people who are channeling doctors from Atlantis. Because that's another civilization that, came to rise, and then apparently there was an apocalypse, and they sunk under the ocean. And they keep rediscovering it here and there.
I'll tell you what, though. Atlantis, there's a lot of interesting stuff around there, and I think it was one of my favorite writers is Graham Hancock. He told a great story about it. Originally the story of Atlantis comes from Plato.
Yes.
And he talks about, oh God, I'm going to mess up the name of this. Solon was one of his ancestors, who lived like a couple hundred years before Plato did. Story was passed down. Solon he was like a diplomat. He'd gone to Egypt and heard the story firsthand of their originator society, the one that came and built all of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
That this society had sank beneath the sea, and they showed him it was like so many thousands of years prior to when Solon had been there. The story goes down to Plato. Plato writes it out. Well, Graham Hancock had worked it together and realized that the exact timeline that Solon gave for when it sank was about the exact timeline of when the seas started to rise at the end of the last ice age.
Oh, interesting.
And his thought was, okay, fine. If Plato just made it all up without any scientific knowledge that we have nowadays, how the hell did he get the timing right?
Right.
Maybe there's more to that story than anybody's really letting on.
Secretly, though, I have always believed in Atlantis.
That's not even a secret. I just let out my craziness all the time.
Yeah.
I don't care.
But yeah, not in the same way that, with mermaids and such. Possibly, that'd be awesome, though. I'd go and sing with them all the time. I'm ready. But, I've always believed in Atlantis, and I've always just assumed that civilization has risen and fallen repeatedly.
Oh,
kind of like the Roman Empire was the king of the world, literally, for the longest time, and then suddenly collapsed.
It wasn't even suddenly.
Well, because it wasn't overnight, but
it's kind of like what we're doing. It's just gradually falling apart.
Yeah, but you reach the highest that your civilization can go, and at some point it's going to recede.
I mean, there are so many different estimates of how long we've been the human that we are now. Exactly, having the same skills. And it ranges anywhere between like 1 million years, and the more conservative ones are like 180 to 200,000 years. 200,000 years is plenty of time to build a society exactly like the one we live in right now, have it collapse, and crumble to dust. And really, who's going to prove that it didn't happen? There's nothing that you can find that's not made out of stone that lasts for more than 10,000 years.
Plastic.
Well, yeah, but how far do we got to dig before we find somebody else's plastic from 10,000 years ago?
Well, maybe we do, and we call it oil.
That's true. Maybe
we do.
We dig the oil out, we make plastics from it, and then eventually it just turns back into oil deposits.
Ashes to ashes,
Son
bro.
of a bitch.
Oh my gosh.
We just solved the history of humanity.
But yeah, I've often thought that.
I'll set my goals.
I'm ready for my prize now. But I've often thought that, though, that the civilization of humanity has risen a bunch of times and then collapsed and then risen again and collapsed and knocks back to what people would call like Ice Age sort of things where there's not a whole lot going on. People are just struggling to survive again. And then they start remembering how to build different tools and they build things all back up again. And maybe they have big technological advances. Who the hell would know? And then if hundreds of thousands of years go by, it would all be destroyed by the time. It would be just rotted away.
The thing is, there are things you can look at, though, that are pretty dead giveaways. Like, if you look at maps that we had, like our great society as we were first coming over to the United States, they were shitty maps.
Mm-hmm.
They still showed monsters off different edges, where you might run off the edge of the world.
Yeah, watch out for giant octopus by this island.
Well, one of my favorite books, and I recommend anybody read this, including you, because I'd eventually like to talk to this guy, Graham Hancock. He wrote a book called Fingerprints of the Gods. And he starts off explaining this map from, I think it's the 1530s. It's Admiral Piraeus. He was a Turkish admiral. He had a series of maps that he claimed were based off older source maps, which were based off maps that came from the Library of Alexandria, which burned down in Egypt.
Right.
Supposedly had all the greatest knowledge in the world. Well, in his maps, he actually has Antarctica on the map, free of ice, showing rivers and forests and all of this. Our society, as we are right now, the world you're living in out there in internet land, we didn't discover Antarctica until like the 1800s.
Right. That's amazing.
He had it hundreds of years prior to that. And now through sonar, we're able to see through the ice and realize that, shit, he knew the exact coast. He knew what it looked like before it froze.
That's amazing.
How? Because somebody went out there with the skills to do it, with the know-how to do it, with the science to do it, and they did it a long, long time ago.
That's amazing.
And we just forgot that we knew how to do that once.
Well, and there's still parts of the world where people don't frequent too deeply. Like there's that Pink Lake in Australia. Yeah. And it's this amazing site, and I happened upon it one day because someone put it on Facebook. And I thought, my God, that can't possibly be real.
It turns out it is.
And I'll be damned, it was real. And I was like, that's the most magnificent, gorgeous place ever. But people didn't realize it was there until like the 1800s when a few settlers had traveled through and discovered it, allegedly discovered it, because I'm sure people knew about it beforehand. But they don't know why it's pink. There's all these little interesting things tucked away here and there in the world that just like this amazing pink lake, or the middle of the rainforest where there's things and you don't know what's going on in there. Oh, there could be all kinds of strange civilizations from many, many eons ago hidden back there.
Well, it's like one of the funnier things I've heard is, you know, all the explorers, like English explorers, would go into the jungles in Africa and they would hear from these tribal people about a very hairy man-like creature that walked around in the jungles, and it was peaceful, but it was huge and powerful. Yeah. And they always kind of blew it off like, these people are making up garbage, you know, a bunch of dumb people. Well, eventually they followed some of them and realized, oh, and nowadays we call them gorillas.
I was going to say Sasquatch.
Well, it sounds like the story of Sasquatch. No, it's a mountain gorilla. You see them in your local zoo now.
But yeah, but there was a time when people did not know they existed.
Yeah, everything out there. There was a time when we didn't know it existed, and that would freak us the fuck out if we heard stories about it.
Yeah, it was.
Because everything's a monster.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is everything interesting or unknown to you must obviously be there to kill your children. And that's always what they think is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine if our society had never heard of an elephant, and then all of a sudden you see there are these, you know, multi-ton creatures that could possibly mow you down, knock trees over, stomp you to death.
Had those giant teeth hanging out of their mouth.
And they just arrived one day into our vision, we'd freak out. We'd want to hunt them to death. Yeah. Which we've already tried to do in the past few centuries. But
yeah, there's only 3 or 4 left in the whole world.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a terrible statistic. We are way off on that count.
Yeah, don't quote me on that one. That one was entirely made up.
You know, 97.6% of all statistics are made up on the spot by the asshole telling them to you.
And usually it's more than that if it's me. But yeah, isn't that amazing, though, that there's... because people absolutely would react in a horrible way if... Well, just like if aliens happen to beam down from some faraway galaxy, people would freak out. Because it would be just as unknown to them as elephants would have been 200 years ago if you'd never seen one. It would be like this bizarre, huge, warlike species that has come down to attack you. Because you know they're big. They look like they've got some kind of armor on. You know.
Well, it depends on which crazy-ass YouTube videos you're watching. Some of them are little friendly guys that look like sticks.
Aw, no, but the elephants.
Yeah.
Yeah, the elephants you would think would be covered. You would assume they were covered in some kind of armor if you saw them. Because they're huge. And their hides are very thick. They don't look like hides of other animals that you would have around.
Yeah, you try to shoot them with like your .22 or whatever, like most people will have in their homes. Yeah, it just bounce off them and piss them off.
But yeah, if you'd never seen one, you would think it's some kind of alien creature, I think.
I agree. That's one good thing about the internet. I mean, we're able to see pretty much everything around the world now. Anybody who can get their hands on one of these cheap digital cameras can load stuff onto the internet, and it makes its way around. We get to inform ourselves. We get to see everything. We get to see all the hoaxes and bullshit, which I think is what's really tearing up our world.
The hoaxes?
Well, not just hoaxes, but I think everybody who's ever been in charge, people are starting to realize how full of shit they are.
Yeah.
Because you're not only able to see through the hoax and like most of the Bigfoot footage and the ghost footage and the aliens footage, You're also able to start seeing through the bullshit in the political spectrum.
Right.
All across the world. And people are just like, we're kind of done playing this game.
Well, but that's what I love about the technological age is that you can go back and then watch the footage of what they just said 5 years ago. And you're like, that's not what you said. I've got it. I taped that. I TiVoed that.
Oh, yeah.
So I know what you said.
I tell you, one of the things that really cracked me up, and I love going back and watching old news footage. There is a great set of videos on YouTube of CNN during the first Gulf War. They completely faked all of their war footage. Like, claimed that they were in Iraq and that there were all these bombs going off and shit. And then all of a sudden, you just get a clip of the exact same people near that location that looked exactly like what you were seeing on TV, but they were sitting on a soundstage drinking coffee and iced tea and getting their makeup done.
That sounds kind of like the footage that people say happened with the moon landing.
You know,
it does sort of sound like it.
I've heard a lot of good argument on how the moon landing was fake. And then I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's a real physicist, not like the people in What the Bleep Do We Know. But
you make fun of my education.
He says, yeah, there's this, there's that, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of his argument, he's like, but it would be a hell of a lot cheaper to just go there than to fake it and pay off all these people to keep their mouths shut. That's probably the best argument I've ever heard for it being real. Yeah,
well, and the thing is that I do believe there was a moon landing, but it is amazing to me at how often things are portrayed that never happens. That there are always tricks of the media that make it seem like something happened or happened in a certain way, or they'll hold it from a certain vantage point, and then they'll crop out the rest of it so that you only see this little bit, and then everybody thinks that's what actually happened.
That happens a lot. I mean, people getting their conversations cut up in little pieces. Nobody ever shows up. Fox News is probably the worst for it. Cutting out bits of interviews just so you make the person you don't like look like a horrible individual.
Yeah. They always do that. There's a band, and I can't think of the name of it, but there's a rap band that took speeches from President Bush and then teased out all the words and didn't even use complete sentences, but they just took all these different words together and made a 3 or 4 minute rap of him singing about him destroying the planets and destroying the world and all these wars.
I have not heard that. We need to find that.
Yeah, we'll hunt it down. But yeah, my brother turned me onto it recently. And it's not new. My brother just, has its way of getting things later on than everybody else.
He's like me. He's just, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's popular today.
Exactly. But the interesting thing about it was that they didn't even use sentences to make this song speech happen. They just teased out different words and spliced them together to make sentences. And so the whole thing is made up, but it's all really his speaking voice because they just took did so many different bits and pieces of so many different speeches that they were able to make a whole song out of it.
I really wonder how far off we are. Like, have you ever seen those the little videos from Japanese concerts where it's like an anime character? It is a 3D hologram that comes out on stage and sings and dances. And they'll have like a small stage in between people, and it'll walk out there, and you can see all around this person like it's real, but it's a fucking cartoon.
No, I haven't seen that. That's
in
freaky.
Real life. That's insane. And when we're talking about people being able to break up conversations like that and do it all digitally, I wonder how far off we are from just having completely fake candidates that never even existed.
Oh my god, like hologram candidates?
Oh yeah. How easy would that be? You can just make up their past. Nobody would ever pull up any dirt because they never existed.
Right.
You fabricate the whole thing. We're probably not that far from it.
Wow. 2016.
Was that the next end of the world?
No, that's the next election. Well, yeah, that's the next end of the world. Hence the next election. But yeah, that's freaky.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've got
I never even thought about that, but that's amazing.
It's a wonderful idea. Hell, we should start putting together some hologram equipment and build our own candidate.
I'm thinking of a name right now. Yeah, because it's got to be a name that inspires power and caring and all these different things. So it's going to be like a superhero name.
There you go.
The first and last initials have to be the same because that's the way it goes.
Oh, that's the best way to put together a fictional character. It helps people remember the name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just blown away by how 1984 is this. My mind is gone.
That said, I talk to a lot of people who are younger, and they don't really have that kind of required reading. We had to read 1984 and Brave New World when I was in school.
Yeah.
And now when you look around, you're like, oh, no wonder they don't want people reading that shit anymore. That's kind of coming true.
One day I'd like to find out why The Catcher in the Rye is such a big deal.
You know, have you ever read it?
No.
I have, and it was a horrible story. Really, I mean,
but
honestly,
why is
it's set in, God, when was that? Was it set in the 40s or the 30s or something? But it's this kid, Holden Caulfield. He's basically a 90s teenager stuck in the old world. He says fuck a lot. He says shit a lot. He says ass a lot. And he runs away from home into New York. And really, the only reason I could see it ever being banned in schools is because he curses.
Huh. So it doesn't have anything to do with taking over the government or any weird stuff like that?
No, not really. Maybe just a sense of angst and not feeling like you belong in society. Because that's really what the character was.
Alienation.
Exactly. And, God, actually, the copy of the book I had a writing in the front of it where it said it should be taken out of the schools. It was actually written in there by a member of my family that worked in some school board in Kentucky.
Well, I mean...
But I read the book and I'm like, well, this is trash.
Huh.
I'm definitely not going to carry it around until I try to kill Jodie Foster for not loving me.
I know, well, and that's the thing is it always pops up
that's not how that guy went.
No, but it always pops up in strange little stories like that about like trying to overthrow the government or weird stuff, and so I never bothered to pick it up because I figured it was just some kind of strange propaganda.
I don't want to use my credit card to buy it and get red flagged by the government.
Yeah, well, yeah, a friend of ours just bought some books on computer hacking because they are interested in learning how to protect their own computer, and the people at the bookstore were giving him the stink eye. And, I mean, like, you could tell that they were freaked out by it. They're like, so you're buying 2 books, huh? What's going on with that?
You want to learn you must be part of Anonymous.
Right, and he's like, no, I just want to make sure that I have good passwords and that I can fix my own stuff when it breaks. He's like, I'm not trying to control anything, I swear to God.
That's good, though. But, I mean, if you can get all that information at a bookstore and just go pay cash and nobody can really follow you, that's kind of scary. Because, I mean, everybody's carrying around those smartphones now. Those are just little computers. They can be hacked.
Yeah.
Everything. We keep all of our information on these devices that we haven't even had around for a full 20 years yet.
Yeah. Well, and then people just love to splash even more of their information out as publicly as they can.
Oh, yeah. We're doing it right now.
Absolutely.
We are just as dumb as everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We fit in with you, my people.
Yeah, it would take no time at all for someone to figure out what our ISP was and come and find us if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be here.
Who cares?
This isn't where we live, guys. This is just our recording studio. So if you show up, we're not going to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
fooled you.
Exactly.
Dumbass.
But that's the thing that we all do it. I do it. Like, I'll realize, I probably shouldn't have put on Twitter that I was going to be on vacation for the rest of the week and not going to be home.
I was goofy enough and foil hat enough to, like, my first 5 years of being on the internet, I didn't put my real name on anything.
I did the same thing.
I had made up names for all these emails, and then those email addresses would have... I would set up other accounts with different made-up names that linked back to those.
I did this.
You'd never know who the hell I was.
That's so funny. Well, you laugh at me because I keep a piece of tape over my webcam. Because I'm paranoid, and people are like, it'll light up, you'll know if it's on. But what if I'm not looking at it right when it does?
It doesn't necessarily have to light up. I mean, if somebody can hack in to use your camera, they could probably hack in to turn off the light.
Well, maybe so.
And there have been a lot of cases in the past few years where women have found out, there's lots of naked footage of me on the internet. Why? Because I happen to walk naked through my house in front of my laptop.
Well, I mean, I leave my window curtains open, so 5 of one and 10 of another. What does it matter?
Like, I make my neighbors use their own camera.
Right. Yeah, I like to give them the flicker of the lights when I'm going to go through. It's like a runway.
There you go. Your punishment for staring in my window is having to see me naked.
You get to see all this, baby.
Joke's on you, dumbass.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But yeah, that's... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it. I had nothing, really. I was just going to make noise with my mouth like I normally do.
Right on. But yeah, that's the thing is I did the same thing. I was so paranoid. I had 100 different passwords, all with different characters and no real words. And I still do that. But I remember when I first started at Facebook, I used part of my first name and part of my last name, but it was a weird name that no one would ever be able to find me. And so I had the one friend that I found on Facebook, but it served no purpose to have one then because no one could figure out it was me.
Exactly.
But then, then there's LinkedIn and all these other different things. So, yeah, I mean, whatever you got's already out there.
Yeah, and really if somebody really wants to hack your life and try and destroy it like Sandra Bullock in the net, that shitty fucking movie.
Yeah.
They're going to. And you don't even have to get on the line, man. Old people that have never seen a computer have their lives hacked into and their bank accounts disrupted.
Yeah, mine was. Yeah, I had to go and change all my bank accounts and my credit card stuff and call the 3 credit reporting agencies, which you're supposed to do, by the way, guys. If you suspect your identity's been lifted, call the 3 credit reporting agencies, and they will report it to each other. Then you can follow with your credit report and see what's going on with that. That was just a public service announcement because no one ever knows that.
The more you know.
The more you know. But yeah, a friend of mine just had that happen the other day where she somebody bought a bunch of purchases on Walmart.com through her bank account, and she'd never used that service, had never used that website. She knew it wasn't her. She knew it wasn't anybody in her family, and they emptied out her bank account.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually becoming more and more frequent. There are a lot of people who don't want to use a traditional bank, and they go and get those, they're almost like a prepaid credit card, but you can have your paychecks direct deposited into them and stuff. Apparently, those things are incredibly easy to hack, and people get their shit stolen all the time. And you know what? When it happens to you, it'll feel like the end of the world.
And then you'll get over it because you have no choice.
Yeah.
But when it happened to me, I got all freaked out. I went to the Social Security department. I went to the actual office, and I'm like, I need somebody to do something. And they just laughed at me. They're like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, we don't know who did that to you. So
right. But I'm like, you have to protect my Social Security number. With what? Yeah. What do you want us to do?
We're not armed here.
Right. But yeah, my only option was to get a different Social Security number, but then any history I'd had would not be connected with that number, my new number. So I would not exist. Basically, my, whatever credit scores I had previous to that wouldn't exist. Any loan history I had wouldn't exist. And the damage wasn't that bad where I needed to do so. But I knew another girl whose identity was stolen because she had lost her purse in Chicago somewhere. And she got pulled over by the police. She was driving somewhere with speeding. She got pulled over. They yanked her quicker than right now out of that car, slammed her into the trunk, threw her in cuffs, because whoever had stolen her purse had been arrested for child molestation under her name. And that person skipped town before they realized it wasn't her that actually had done so. And so, yeah, there was a warrant for child molestation under her name, but it really, honest to God, was not her. And it took $10,000 and just crazy amounts of money to rectify that.
Her, it was a really good cover story.
Yeah. She's been secretly doing creeper stuff all over town and didn't tell anybody.
Every once in a while, I just steal someone else's identity and arrest it under my name.
Isn't that weird, though? But yeah, you can just get pulled over and be yanked out of your car because someone has weird charges pending under your name.
What got me, somebody stole my wallet 15 years ago or more and rang up they started up a utility bill in my name at their location, which I never lived in. I didn't even find out for a couple of years because I never had it in my name. But they ran up a $700 bill, and I'm thinking, how do you do that? And it was a lot cheaper back then to have utilities into this.
Well, yeah.
So don't try and compare it to today.
Yeah, it was $800 a month deep winter cost.
Your big house to heat would cost maybe $300. So somebody had done this in a small apartment. I kept thinking, why didn't you people just turn it off?
Yeah, that's like a year's worth of charges.
Exactly. You just let them keep doing this in my name? Thanks.
Wow. See, they don't have the same utility company I do because they are quick with that. You're a day late. We said we'd turn it off, and we weren't kidding.
You're 87 years old and handicapped and can't afford to pay your bill? Well, I'm sorry that it's 40 below outside. You're going to die.
Yeah, and that's actually happened.
Oh, yeah. It happens in the Chicago region all the time.
It does.
They do that shit in the summertime and people just die from the heat. Yeah.
They cook to death. And how terrible is that there's people literally cooking themselves to death because they don't have access to cooling centers I suppose they could go to the one cooling center in town if somebody could come and pick them up and take them there and take them home and provide them with something to drink while they're there, but they don't have the ability to get there.
What gets me is these companies, and I heard a guy from, I think it was the Chicago area, had said this. He was trying to defend his utility company. And he said, well, it should have been the responsibility of the friends and family and neighbors to make sure that bill was paid. And I'm like, why do we allow assholes like you to run anything?
Right.
I don't care what you think you own. We're all human beings. We all have an equal inheritance on this planet. This planet belongs to everybody.
Everybody equally.
Equally,
Nobody has more of a right to be here than anybody else.
I mean, really, we know how to get electricity.
Sure,
there are people who work in those companies that obviously went to school to make it all work right. But we know how to do it even without them.
Yeah.
It's easy to set up solar power on your home. And you can run electric heating, electric lights, anything you need, and just turn that shit off and stop paying them completely.
Mm-hmm.
But then they go ahead and they set up laws where you have to sell them the excess electricity. You know what I would do? I would just set it up so, no, the excess electricity went to my neighbor's house. Sorry, there wasn't any more to sell to you.
I like to share my extra ions or whatever. Yeah.
I've been charging battery packs for everybody in the neighborhood, so I don't have any extra for you this week, dickhead.
Bring your cell phones this way. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing, though. It's absolutely crazy. But people will fight over everything. They insist, well, we need to charge you $1 billion to have electricity when we know it doesn't cost that much to make electricity. And yes, I know there's dependency on foreign oil and blah, 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 blah. We can talk about it for years.
But there doesn't have to be.
There doesn't have to be. No. And that's the point.
We can make all the fuel we need right here. Mm-hmm. Nikola Tesla, and for those who don't know, he was a kind of cohort of Edison back in the day, coming up with all the electric stuff you now enjoy. He figured out how to pull electricity right out of the air for free.
Yeah.
And man, they shut him down, and as soon as he committed suicide from being basically made financially destitute by Edison and other power-hungry companies that wanted to sell it to everyone, the government went in and made all of his paperwork, all of his designs, national security secrets, and they hid the shit away.
Yeah,
how sad is that?
Well, wouldn't it be great to be able to get in there and see all these different patents and different things and designs, schematics to build these things that we don't have access to because it's national security risk? And how is the security risk to ensure that everybody in this country has enough power and electricity and heat and cool air when they need it so that everyone can survive? Didn't we all see the movie The Saint? They've had that capability for so long.
What do they call it? Cold fusion.
Cold fusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and I joke because I bring up silly movies, but why do you think that appeared in a movie 20 years ago? Because those ideas were already...
Statute of limitations, somebody had to show, well, yeah, we told people about it.
Exactly. Yeah, but these ideas pop up over and over again because there's actually been people working on them, and they've been perfected prior, and now they have been lost because you're not allowed to have access to the information, and people are, again, working on it, trying to perfect it again.
If you just go out there and search, 0-point energy, there are thousands of videos out there where people were just making these devices that can keep creating energy, and they never need to be plugged into anything. They don't even need sunlight to power them.
Wow.
You get them started, and they keep going, and they make their own energy and keep going and going and going. That's what we need on every single house. Why make people poor and destitute and working 4 jobs just to survive and barely scrape through and die at a young age? Just so somebody else can keep piling on money for their great-great-great-great-grandchildren and maybe one day inherit.
If there's even a planet left when they're born.
Yeah, if they're done poisoning the place by then.
Yeah.
It's a look in the mirror when you want to see who's at fault for that, because every one of us is to blame for allowing it to happen.
Yes.
Nobody has power over us unless we give it to them.
Well, and it's, small things add up to big things over time, but people really don't pay enough attention to what they're actually doing that is causing strain on the planet. Every time that you go and you drive across town to go and get fast food, you're burning fuel to go and drive your car across town, first of all.
So you've just supported wars for energy.
Right, and then you're going and buying food products that have been created with genetically inferior food.
And most likely some kind of beef that was grown on a farm where they burned down the rainforest to get
right, and that was going to be my next point. Yeah, every time that you eat meat, and I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not going to lie about that, but every time... Yeah, me too. But every time you eat meat, you eat way more carbon value than what you could possibly realize. I took a test on that about what my carbon footprint was, and I was horrified. I'm like, but I live in a tiny house, and I keep all my heat down, and I make sure I save... the water when you turn the shower on to let it get hot. I use that water. I pour it in a pitcher and I water stuff with it. So I try not to waste anything. When I'm showering, I turn the water off while I'm soaping up my body because I'm saving water. And I've always, since I was little, been made to turn off the lights, use the sunlight while it's out. Yeah. Open up all your curtains, use the sunlight. And I thought I was doing really well with having a small carbon footprint, but I wasn't. I'm like, it didn't even occur to me about driving to school, how much carbon that was using. Mowing the lawn, because I'm not manly enough to go out there and start pushing on with that mower that has no motor. My God. And I'm not buff. I don't have the upper body strength to do it.
It doesn't take buff.
It doesn't take buff. That's what these guys always tell me. But I don't want to do it. I'm lazy.
Yeah,
and that's the true priority. I'm lazy, but...
That's the problem, that we've created a society of people who are all lazy, and they all want some kind of technology to take care of everything.
Like the robot vacuum.
Yeah, but they don't care where it comes from.
That's the thing.
That's the problem.
That is the problem. And I've been an unwitting participant myself.
I have too. I've got all kinds of stuff. I'm sure I own plenty of clothes. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing a pair of fucking Nikes right now, probably made by a small Asian person.
Yeah.
By person, I mean child.
Yeah.
You know, they were probably just, here, if you make us these shoes, we won't force your parents to work themselves to death. Who knows?
Yeah. But then, like, because I'm looking at your shoes now, and I'm judging you based on your shoes.
Don't look at me!
But do you remember when they came out with those shoes a few years ago where the bottoms of them were made of used tires? And then these shoes would last for like 10 years every pair.
Yeah.
What happened to those?
Just went by the wayside.
They were ugly.
Quick.
They were ugly.
Who cares?
But why are we so concerned about our feet looking nice? Like,
why are we so concerned with what people think of the way we look anyway?
Yeah.
Because it's been sold to us.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started talking about that documentary, Consuming Kids, that's really it. Everything about our lives has been sold to us from day one. We're kind of just brainwashed, massive dumb fucks. Yeah, well,
I would say about 20, maybe as far along as 25 years ago, there was a street in a town nearby here that they tried an experiment on. It was a reasonably busy street, and they made a stretch of it out of recycled tires.
Okay.
Because they wanted to see how long it would last. That street still looks great. I drove down it the other day.
Matter of fact, there are a couple of them in the area. They were using the same materials, and they have lasted quite a lot longer. I know a friend of mine that works in the industry where he actually tests roadside materials, and he said they have stuff. It doesn't expand or contract with the heat and the cold. It doesn't crack. The problem is nobody will buy it. Why? Because if they buy it this year, what are they going to work on next year?
Yeah, we don't have a ton of infrastructure that needs to be fixed,
guys. We are so worried about making more money, more money, because that's what money is an imaginary concept. I hate to tell people that. I hate to break your heart, but it has no value compared to life.
You can't eat it.
No, you cannot eat it.
You can, it just won't do anything for you.
There are a lot of people out there that are like, well, it's based on gold and oil, and, any of that. Gold is literally, gold, silver, that's just petrified prehistoric animal shit.
Yeah.
Nothing more. When you put that gold ring on your wife's finger, you're saying, here, honey, this shit's for you.
Nice.
But oil is just broken down decayed matter, trees, animals, plants, whatever, for millions of years.
Yeah.
We're basically just throwing garbage around for the sake of throwing garbage around so that some people can live better lives than everyone else.
Yeah.
We're fucking ourselves over badly.
And literally for nothing. So that everybody, and not everybody, so that a very small amount of the world can have plenty of money, which you can't eat or do anything with. But why do people work to get money? What do you need money for? To get the things you actually need in life. These are the things that are actually valuable. Having a place to live is value. You need shelter.
Everybody should be entitled to that.
And I'm not talking everyone needs a McMansion. Everybody needs to be able to stay out of the elements.
Yeah.
And that should be just a human right. Yeah, that should be a human right, though, is that you don't have to freeze to death.
Right. Access to food. That should be a right, not something that you have to bust your ass for. Even tribal people who were hunters and gatherers only worked about 15 hours a week to get everything they need. The rest of their life was based around social skills.
Right.
You know, getting together, telling stories, having a good time.
Passing their history along.
Exactly.
Yeah. They had to make their own clothing and such out of, weaving whatever materials that they had locally. But the things that are actually important that you need in life are things like food, shelter, and clothing. And you need clothing just so you won't be naked, so you won't freeze to death.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, when you go back to, the Roman times, when they first came in contact with the Germans and, the Viking-type people, those people ran around naked all winter long. They didn't give a damn.
They didn't, but they had good, strong drink.
That's true.
They had good, strong drink.
You're drunk enough. You don't care if there's snow blowing on your private parts.
Nah, you don't even know if there was. But the things that are actually valuable in life are the things that keep people alive, and money doesn't keep you alive. It does because you have to have it to buy things. In order to really fix stuff, we've got to get rid of that first. I mean, we've got so many things we can do. Our technological abilities are amazing right now. Oh, God, yeah.
And they're only getting better every day. But we're keeping them all kind of hush-hush because you're not going to make any money. It's not going to make me rich. Why should I put it out there? Because it's good for people.
Yeah.
There's this kid that invented that little test strip that can tell you if you have cancer or not.
Isn't that?
It costs 10 cents to test you. Why are we using that?
Isn't that crazy, though?
We found out, straight up cannabis, or not cannabis, but hemp oil essentially cures cancer.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to grow that here in this country. We've got a medical institution to support.
Right.
You need chemotherapy. It has a 4% cure rate.
Yeah, you need chemotherapy and radiation, all these different things. And those things are invaluable to people that it helps. But there's a large percentage of the population that it actually doesn't help at all and causes just harm. And then they're very sick and miserable the whole time they're undergoing treatment.
And passing on huge medical debt to
and that was actually the most important part, is that then now they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And there's no way out. Exactly. There's no way out.
I think a lot of people start losing hope. And that's where those preppers come in for the end of the world story. They're just seeing all the bad. They're seeing that it's kind of falling apart, and they don't think there's a way out. I think if we can just get people to look at the positives in life, just get them to look at what it would take. If we took 10 years, went isolationist like we were before the 1900s, and just rebuilt everything based on economics, not economics financial-wise, but economizing what we have and what we use and what we spend and what we waste. Sustainability. Real economizing. Get rid of all these assholes who think they need billions of dollars a year. Fuck you. Get out of our country.
Right.
You're no longer welcome here. Nobody needs that much. If you made $100,000 a year and only worked 40 hours a week, you could travel anywhere in the world. You could find something fun to do every single day.
Yeah.
You don't need billions.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that. That's just something to hold over others, to have power over others. We don't need those people anymore. They're falling by the wayside, and more on the internet, you're seeing people just exposing them for the worthless assholes they are. I like that.
I do too. And the thing is people, and I mean public people, regular people, everyday Joes like us, are coming into their own and seeing, we really don't need you guys to do these things to save us and to protect us and to govern us. We can do it ourselves.
Yeah. Search sustainability. Oh.
Yeah, search sustainability. And maybe next time when we talk to Bill, he'll share with us the heating unit he's devising.
I'm going to build it. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, he's devising just an amazing technological advancement made of recyclable materials to heat his dwelling space. So I'm excited to hear about this.
Essentially, it'll be about a $20 piece that'll keep your house heated all year long. And then once I've got it figured out, I'll show everybody how to build it.
Yeah, I can't wait because I really want one. And my house is really small, so I'll just need a half size.
Yeah, probably.
It's tiny.
We don't want to turn your house into an oven.
But yeah, so anything else you'd like to say?
No, be good to one another. Treat each other with respect and kindness, and do nice things for the people around you. Don't do it for money.
Yeah.
Don't be a douchebag.
Don't be a douchebag, and be out there and just help some people. And when you have things that are extra that you don't need, there's somebody out there that has nothing.
Yeah. Instead of throwing stuff away when you think it's all worthless, give it to somebody who needs it. There is always somebody who needs something.
Yeah. Maybe next time we can talk about the freegan movement. You don't know what it is.
See, I don't know.
The freegan movement is people who go and liberate foodstuffs out of garbage cans and dumpsters from near the grocery stores.
We should talk about that.
So yeah, we're going to talk.
Not today.
Not today. We're out of time. So next time we're going to maybe talk about the freegan movement and anything else you guys bring up. So please leave some comments.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us some comments. Tell us what you want to talk about. Tell us what interests you. Tell us what we can do to be better at what we're doing. But do something.
Yeah, do something. Let us know, because otherwise, how could we ever know what you think?
That's right. So this is the end of Ravings for this week, or at least today.
Yeah.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Tana, so signing off.
See ya.
Bye.